Join us from the audience.
No, she's right there.
She's in the flesh.
Are you just going to handle the capitalization thing?
Yeah. It's a real simple one. Any equipment purchase over 5. Hey, Scott. He's the fastest one that can get up those steps. I always know it's Scott because he skips a step. You get to listen to people's cadence and like, oh, I know who's coming up the steps most of the time. Yeah, and Peter was surprised that we don't have this policy on the books, but yeah, any equipment over $5,000 needs to be capitalized. It's pretty standard.
Yeah,
Gap
surprised
accounting.
at the auditor, wouldn't it?
Previous years, yeah.
Of course, I had very few. That age.
Realize.
And hair and ears.
Yeah. Yeah, it's to just kind of keep, it's something that's non-conforming, don't make more. Just kind of postpone it.
We did.
She will probably.
We'll see.
The lot we looked at was right
We'll
down
see.
here, right across from fish camp.
I'll take
Yeah, there's a man-
No, it's fine.
So,
It's
the
like-
idea
it's
was
like-
to kind of try to-
Do what you want.
How's it been getting
Everybody
you?
knows how everybody feels.
Fine so far. I
You wanna
was,
make-
you
wanna
know,
continue to make a statement?
they're working, actually they're working for the PAC. So they had, as of today, this morning, I went to work, but they hadn't told
Well,
out
you
the
know,
road
maybe
yet.
it's something. I don't know.
They, you know, shoot up the Campbell from McVeigh to Campbell. But it's just, you know, it's a different gravel road.
You wanna flag it?
Sure. I'm sure they'll grade it and pack it through the process. So it's all ready. They don't seem to mess around.
No, they seem like a good crew.
This is kind of part of what some of these new chairmen do.
I think they started, well, at least they started moving. I don't know if they're putting it around.
They have. It says,
This one came as a result of an application.
Well, let's rock and roll, huh?
I mean, we're not.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our city council workshop agenda. I'd like to call the meeting to order for our November 3, 2021 council workshop. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chester,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Leo,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Beckman.
Here. All council persons present. Any agenda items to what we?
no
showing
changes,
today?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. Council? All right, the agenda will stand as presented. Next agenda item, guest speakers. Attending from the Saugus Douglas Historical Center is Bill Hess and Director Eric Golinek. Bill and Eric show.
Thank you for having us here today. I'm Eric Golinek. I'm the director at the.
Eric, if you want to.
Okay, I can
yeah,
pull
you're
my
fine,
mask
you're
down
fine.
for this. Okay, great. Yeah, that's probably a little better.
Yeah.
I'm Eric Golinek. I'm the director at the Saugatuck Douglas History Center, and I'm excited to talk to you today at the workshop to introduce you to our newest project. It's been really years in the making, but this is an effort to bring long-lasting historical markers to our communities here in Saugatuck as well as in Douglas. The History Lives Here Historical Marker Project. The sheet that you have in front of you gives you an illustration of what these markers will look like. There is 4 that we have planned for Saugatuck this year. These would go in before Memorial Day of 2022. And the format of them, you can see the panels themselves are full color, featuring photographs as well as engaging graphic design, 24 inches by 48 inches high, and will tell a number of important stories for visitors and residents alike, marking the events where the spots where history happens. We've used the title "History Lives Here" to help encourage people to think about history as something that is a part of our daily lives around us as we're out and about in our business and exploring. Today, this is an informational presentation. We want to introduce you to this project, and we also hope to receive verbal approval to proceed with the planning, which we've already walked through here with the city and on site. So with that, Bill, do you want to say a few things about the process specifically?
Eric explained a lot about it. The markers are basically 7 foot high. They're V-shaped, but they're only 24 inches wide. The idea was to make sure that we didn't cut any of the sight lines where they're going to be placed. They're steel structures bolted to a concrete base. Got a lot of information. The committee did a walkthrough with Scott and got great ideas for where they ought to be, how we should do them, make sure the mower goes around them. So that was a real help. Thank you again. The panels telling the history of that particular place, they're waterproof and fade-proof, 24 by 48. And that's where the pictures and the context will be. If you've been in the shanty, it's the same designer that's doing these, and they're really terrific because they're engaging, and the visitors just don't read something, they see what it's all about. The material's guaranteed for 10 years, and but we actually have heard that it can have a lifespan even outside for 20 years. And there's 6 markers in the first phase. First one would be in Wicks Park next to the Chain Ferry. Both panels would be on the Chain Ferry because we have a big story to tell there. Wicks Park southwest corner, it would be on boat shipbuilding in Saugatuck, both panels on that. In Cook Park, at the site of the big pavilion, and one panel is on the big pavilion, the other's on the steamship tourism. And finally, the last one would be in Coughlin Park at the far southwest corner, and that would be the fruit exchange and the actually fruit growing in Saugatuck and Douglas. In Douglas, there's 2 sites, and for the committee members of the 5 of us for Douglas, and they could only come up with 2 sites. So that's how it works. Installation will be completed by Historic Center with supervision by the city DPW, and we've got Scott's all in on this project. He's been very, very helpful with it. The History Center will be responsible for ongoing maintenance, repair, replacement, panels, concrete base, and any of the steel structure it's on. One of the things I think you all know about is there are times that people come and say, here, take this city, it's a gift to you, and then they don't follow up, and it's the city's responsibility. The History Center will take responsibility for all the maintenance for this project. Funding will come from sponsorship. Each panel will be $2,000 sponsorship. The sponsor's name will be on there, and it can be an individual. It could be a family, it can be a company, it can be an individual with a company name, and that's how we will fund the project. This, as Eric mentioned, this meeting is to get a verbal approval from you all to go ahead, proceed with it. And we will then get a formal letter of agreement that spells out all the details of the project. So kind of excited about it. I think we've talked about for a long time, marking the history of our community in a way that our visitors and residents can see, we can tell the story and they can see all about it. So any questions for either of us?
Mayor,
Sure.
do you have the sponsorships already, Bill?
We told all the sponsors that we were coming to you all to get approval, but tentatively we have 5 confirmed out of the 12 and 3 more that have said they would be very interested in doing it. And so that's a big help.
Okay.
And at the end of the meeting, I'll pass out the information sheet we're giving to sponsors. It looks very similar to the first one I passed out, but it tells them all about the project.
So you said 12 sponsors, so each panel has a sponsor?
Yeah, each panel has a sponsor.
Okay.
And we've got realtor, we got a family, we've got individuals, and I think an individual with his business information on it. And again, pretty good for 10 years, 10 to 15 years of keeping the name out in front of the community and the visitors. Scott?
Oh, thanks. You've got a pretty good description of where the Saugatuck ones will be located. I don't suppose you have them on a map anywhere?
I do, yes. I did make a packet for
Okay.
everybody, but I do have one I can pass around that has the locations marked on them. That was based on our visits with Scott on site.
Yeah, we basically walked all these spots with Scott.
Okay,
And I remember specifically he said, this is, as I mentioned, this is one the lawnmower can get by, so put it here. And also when we were over at Cook Park, this is where the big pavilion was. This will not stop a sight line. This is
Oh,
a
okay.
good spot to have it. So
Okay.
I actually even came and talked to Scott and Ryan before we had that meeting, just to kind of give an idea of that you were not just throwing something on you to get their buy-in first and make sure it was going to work. DPW and the city are, obviously very, very important part of this.
Great project.
Yeah.
Great project.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Excited about it. As you must. Absolutely. And we have a lot, obviously, this is phase 1. We have a lot more stories to tell about Saugatuck. So we think this will go very well, and then we plan to do more in the future.
Is that one still over here in Jones Park about the board, about the big pavilion? Up the window, isn't there one
There's,
there?
yeah. that's the,
So we don't know if that would be gone or that would remain, or how are they going to work together on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as we started talking about this, there are a number of markers across the communities and across the county. The Allegan Tourist Council put those signs up in, I think, in the 1990s
Yeah,
or
that's
the early
been there a while.
2000s.
Yeah.
We have discussed in our group potentially reaching out to Allegan County and seeing, we think maybe the Parks Department County Parks was involved with the project. It's not clear if there's still some entity that's taking responsibility for those markers. Some of them could use an upgrade. Just
Yeah, I
because
think
of-
that one is
just because of
kind
weathering.
faded or something. And,
Yeah, but it is those signs are part of a countywide interpretive program. There's a driving tour that you can drive all the way to the eastern part of Allegan County and all the way here to the lake shore and see those same style of markers. So I think if I'm understanding your question or comment.
Well, I didn't know if this one would be eliminated,
Right.
or I do need, last I looked at it.
Not at this time, but that is something we could talk about in
Nice.
phase 2
It's a-
of either replacing that or possibly doing something that would serve the same function, but in a different form that would.
I
fit
just
with
thought it was a
what we're
good
doing.
location for the,
I think so.
or
Slightly
the
different.
pavilion, because it
That's a little
mentioned
different
which
on
way
this
to
part.
look. and
Oh.
that's where it was. But Right.
Yeah.
Two of them or not, I don't know.
It's a little different. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have another question. I like down under the funding that the donor will be recognized. I think lots of people contact the city and say, we'd like to do something in memoriam of our parents, but we're not big fans of the great big picnic tables and benches and that. So this is a nice way to let people express their appreciation.
As I said, we already have one of the potential donors based on how it goes with council is doing it in memory of her family, longtime family in the area.
Yeah, but great comment. And if both now, but I think in the future, we're imagining this could be a multi-year project of adding additional markers, not just in downtown, but across a wider area. And it might be a great opportunity as if people do approach the city and are looking for some kind of memorial like that. This could be one outlet for that.
Good. Any other questions from council?
Yeah, just curious, what's the next steps then for them?
Ryan, what do you?
So this, I think Bill had requested just some initial buy-in from council to proceed with design. So I think once they get things dialed in, I think they would come back and present a final.
Letter of
We
agreement?
get an agreement and what we're looking for is that you say, good, go ahead.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to make sure you didn't raise any issues before we got started, or we assume that you're buying into something.
Well, it appears like we have pretty much unanimous consent on support.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to, make it official, and if so, you and
I mean, so
Eric can work out some type of a, motion or something, council resolution or whatever you need to bring to council. Let you worry about that. Infinite wisdom.
Just one more thought, Mayor. The reason I asked about the map is I'm fully in favor of it. I'm just mindful how strongly sometimes constituents react to anything close to the river. So I don't know if it's advisable to demo anything, put something up. I mean, prior to sinking a concrete base to see if we get any reaction. I mean, the place seemed, based on the map I saw, looks fairly sort of thoughtful in terms of back far enough, but it's 7 feet high. Some people may react, particularly to the one closest, I think, to the gazebo. I don't know if you want to test it by making it not permanent to start. It's just a thought. I think they're great, but I just know we've had reactions to anything of any height near the river.
Yeah, we have.
Be
We have. We have.
Is that too subtle?
Yeah.
So I think, again, they're looking for some conceptual buy-in. And so this is a workshop.
Right.
And so I think they're just looking for, go ahead and proceed with your design work, but you're gonna have to come back for final approval. So any other input that you have like that at this time, I think would be helpful to these gentlemen.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's a way to sort of,
Test the water.
test the waters a little bit. I mean, this is helpful, this stuff about the thoughtfulness that went into the design, maintenance considerations, all these things are great when people ask about it, that it has been thought through. I just wonder, people just tend to react strongly to seeing different things in some of the parks, or near some of the historic fixtures. I mean, this is important to explain it because we get tons of questions, and I think they look great, but I'm just one person.
So you're looking for like a mock-up.
Well, I wonder if that's advisable, because if you're going to sink concrete, is it advisable just to, I don't know.
I think the council would like to see the ultimate location on something other than, we didn't have the opportunity to all review the map and the location. Maybe that's something that could be a part of the, I don't know what, another presentation as they proceed.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
How quickly are you all looking to get this accomplished?
Installation before Memorial Day weekend. So we've got some time.
Okay.
So the first thing is to order them. Have you ordered them yet? or-
No, we're still.
So
getting
that's your
quotes.
first important part is getting the,
Yeah,
it's
we've got.
the support from the
steel
council to
frames.
proceed with order and everything. Location can always be, I suppose,
Right.
changed.
But there's I
As we
just had a
proceed
thought
through the process.
to meet Scott's need or concerns. One issue might be that, you know, if you put something up, no one would know really what it was or why it was there. Maybe something in either a regular council packet describing the plan and people, you know, the constituents could see it. And we know how they are. They didn't say, I never saw it after they don't like it, but that might be a way to give them a preview of what this plan is to see if you all get any pushback from them. It's a possible way to do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to throw this out just because it might be following up on that for people to see it. It might be helpful to have a mock-up, maybe here in City Hall. So when people walk in, they see how high 7 foot is. It's just made out of cardboard or whatever, but they see how high 7 is, follow the V shape and know how wide it is, just so that people can figure it out a little bit better. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Yeah. And if I may, another, following up on that, maybe another suggestion through the History Center would be to post maybe a Survey Monkey that doesn't cost you anything. Just have pictures and renderings and advise folks to come and see it and chime in and at least solicit input so that if there are favorable, hopefully you would assume for the most part, folks are going to be pretty favorable. But if folks do have a concern, they can voice it at that time also in
Your
additional in the
mock-up
packet.
there instead of a City Hall, if you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of telling our town story, and I love these. I think they're great. I just keep thinking back to the mock-ups of the replacement for the gazebo
Yeah.
and the reaction that had. So
Yeah.
do we want to go down that road unintentionally? I don't think we will, but
The advantage of having it potentially at the History Center, Arnett, is that applies to Douglas as well.
Right.
I don't, theirs are at the old schoolhouse and the bayou, and I don't think that would be much of a problem. Maybe potentially some concerns here, so.
May I?
Chime in.
I don't have a problem with it. I think you should, I'd like to see the map, but I mean graphically, I appreciate that everything coordinates. There's continuity in the graphics with what's been done previously. And I think people will enjoy them. And if you could just come back with maps, I don't really see a problem. I think we're mostly in support.
yes.
I would be
Yes.
concerned of doing anything temporary because it reminds me of the pump. You know, if we had something with sandbags, I think that, you
Right.
know, or something that's sort of temporary looking. Oh, yeah. You know, that's inviting another level of problem. Let's like drawing a circle around it.
I just think we'll be well served if people don't wake up one morning, go to the park and see something that they didn't know was coming. I think might be wise.
Yeah, and to that, maybe that is a messaging and event issue. And
Well, at the next step, we could just get a layout or some type of prototype or something, a little more detail to it. And saying, you know, because we're really talking about location more than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like
Yeah,
it. That
for
seems to be the
sure.
only hang up a little bit.
If I may, the other great thing about Zoom is I see that Scott Sullivan is on, and we can put him on the spot to perhaps have an article that will allow you to exhibit your plans.
Yeah, give me the stuff.
Thank you, Scott, wherever you are.
All right,
Good.
are we good? Can you continue, I think, to just coordinate things with Ryan, if you would?
Do you all have enough clarification on where the council's at?
We'll get back to make sure that we
I
understand.
think, let's just circle back. So I think they're asking for a more detailed map of the locations. And then a mock-up
I think a mock-up's just so people can get a sense of size and scale.
on site.
Personally,
At the History Center.
I think moving them around just so people tend to react really strongly to things around the river. I mean, as we've learned. You know, personally, having it there one day, the one near the gazebo, having it there for a couple days to see if people are like, you know, I look out of my condo and I don't, you know.
yeah, why don't you, does Sally do your graphics? Why don't you check with Sally and see how she would like, I mean, as a designer, I think it would be great to solicit her input on the proper way to get feedback and display. Maybe we can work with you for a minute on how to do that.
And the goal would be how to let the people that would be interested in seeing it know there's something to see.
Yeah, whether that's Photoshop, whether that's
Yeah.
on site, whether
Yeah.
that's at your location.
That's
um,
good.
You know, there's a myriad of ways of approaching that.
I just think with your map, if you could have like a photoshopped image of the actual thing on the map instead of just a star, that would probably do it justice.
So you can see the view. Sort of a render.
Yeah.
That may be the best way to show people. And again, maybe have it in a packet that people can see.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
Thank you.
We're good.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for your work.
guys. Okay. You the city manager report, right?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. City manager's report is on page 3 of your packet. Not on the report, but worth mentioning is a thanks to the city staff for helping with the elections and doing a great job with that. So Cindy, Kate, and Jamie, excellent job. And then also a thanks to our election workers who also did an excellent job. And then congrats to Ross. I see that you've joined us. Welcome aboard. We'll talk about when he gets placed on council. It's a future agenda item here on the workshop packet. Garn and Holly, welcome. A continued welcome. Look, moving on to the report itself, just to hit some highlights. Mr. Mayor, if I may, pop-up patios. So city staff conducted their second round of informational meetings with business owners. So staff will be ready to present to council at the end of November with our recommendations and feedback from the city.
Mr. Mayor, do you want us to ask questions now or wait till the end?
What's that?
Is it okay to ask questions at different sections
Yeah,
of this?
I think let them get through it, and then I think we can go back.
Go back, okay.
Okay, thanks. Oval Beach staffing and operations. Our focus right now and going into the winter and into the spring is just to retain our existing staff that we have, including our beach manager, Danny, who's awesome. And then we're going to be making some phone calls of our younger staff and make sure that they will hopefully come back. So that's going to be the focus going into spring. You have a DPW report. Thanks to Scott. Scott is here. I mean, I'm happy to hit the highlights for Scott. Scott, jump in at any point that you'd like. But I think one of the main things that draws people attention is the dewatering station at Lucy and water. And that's going to be, they're starting to remove that already. So that's kind of a 3-4 step process. Scott, do you want to hit the highlights on that, what they're going to see here in the next few days?
Can you step up, please?
And
You're on TV.
feel free to remove your mask if
Thank
you
you.
like. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, step one is to get the tube that runs underneath the street sealed up. So we have a plan, consulted with F&V on all of this, but John Moxie and I worked on it a little bit together. Step one is to get the tube, since it goes downhill, it's sloped down towards the west. It's critical that we get the tube brick and mortared up on the east side of the street, on the mill pond side of it. So we just got that catch basin dewatered so that we can get brick and mortar in there and get it to set and cure. After that, then we can get that inflatable ball plug out of the drain, and that connects that catch basin into the main storm water sewer system running to the north. And then from there, it's just removal. So I've got our concrete contractor lined up. We talked about putting a metal fabricated cover over that pit. After thinking about it a little more practically, John, Moxie, and Ryan and I discussed that it's a little more practical and probably better for the long haul to just backfill it with sand, compact it, and then pour 8+ inches of concrete over it. That eliminates any hazard possibly to snowplow equipment, because typically when you have any sort of cover like a manhole cover, it has a cast housing around the outside of it. So That wouldn't have a housing, so it would make snow plowing potentially have a little bit of a wake-up call one morning snow plowing if that casing wasn't in there. So yeah, that's the plan. Anticipated time frame. Temperatures are getting colder, so concrete needs to get poured soon. So we're looking at, I'm going to overestimate and say 3 weeks. So, but we hope for much sooner than that.
If you don't mind, may I? This might be an obvious question, but if flooding happens again and it's a real quick thing that happens, will we be able to get back in there and put the pump back in?
We'll be
quickly?
able to assist with flooding, not with that. In order to make that pit useful again, we would have to jackhammer out that concrete and also chisel out the brick and mortar in the tube. So most likely, if we get another incident, it's going to be an isolated event. I suspect, can't say that as fact, but based on the water trends right now, the levels, it's probably going to be an isolated event. So in that case, we have our trash pumps ready to go at the garage. So we'd be able to mobilize that into that area and pump with those until the water recedes.
And if maybe it's just 10 years from now, we'll just go ahead and chisel away and go back in there.
30, yeah.
Let's hope 30.
Yeah,
Let's hope
I think
30.
that's the trend. I guarantee it.
So we'll have to map it out and make sure future public works people know how to locate it. And
Yeah,
We'll
it will be
write out a
useful.
whole story, so then they'll know what to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll put pictures of Scott in it.
Put in a bottle and then
Put a
seal
bottle.
it in with the.
A time
Instructions.
capsule.
Time capsule.
Oh, man. That's
No,
funny.
we were, at first when we decided that we were going to move forward with removing that, I've been nervous this whole time, but I took a lot of comfort in knowing that last time I checked that water level, it was only just a few inches below that catch basin on the northwest corner, right in front of Willow Park. But when we went back down there to start doing this work, it was over a foot underneath that. So I think it was 2 years ago on a Thanksgiving, we got about 1.5 foot storm surge. So I think we won't have to worry about, think is a gray area.
Yeah.
But I think we won't have to worry about that severe of flooding again if we do see another incident.
Okay.
That's the plan. And then other than that, Scott and his crew are gonna be working on leaf pickup, right? Whenever those leaves
Oh, yes.
start to fall. And then I think for the next, 3 weeks, holiday decorations start to go up, which our public works staff, they take that on themselves. And that's 3 weeks, full crew?
Yeah, it's a lengthy process. You might think, why 3 weeks for all that? But it's because we have all of our normal maintenance responsibilities to do as well at the same time. I didn't give you this in the report, but I'll just add while I'm here that the asphalt plants are closing down. They close up for deer season on November 15th. So we are sneaking a few rounds of asphalt patching in before those plants close up as usual. So, thank you.
Chris, was your question for Ryan or Scott?
It's for Ryan.
Okay. then we're good. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Are you finished?
Oh, I'm finished. Yeah, unless there's any questions, I'm finished with the
No.
highlights.
No, we can
No, mine is
we'll open it
public
up.
patio, so I'll wait till you're done with everything.
Oh, I'm done. Yeah, I just hit the highlights there.
Okay. Then if I may, you had a second informational meeting on the public patios with some of the business owners. How many have attended those?
In total, I would say 30.
30?
Yeah, 30. I think the first round was 15 plus, around that. I think the second round was less than that, maybe 8, 7. Scott, did you join both of those?
I did. I think you're.
Yeah, it's 25 to 30 as a guesstimate.
Did they give you, I mean, I know that Kate worked on all of the ideas for this. Have they given you, are they kind of coordinated in what they're moving forward, or is it a hodgepodge of different feelings?
Yeah, not at all. They're not coordinated at all.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, that's kind of staff's job to just take some feedback. So we had 2 different presentations. We had the first presentation was to the permit holders. And the purpose of that presentation was twofold, kind of to educate them on existing rules and regulations, get them into compliance because a lot of them were not. So it was really directed at the existing permit holders with the pop-up patios. The second presentation was open to any business and or anyone else that we had contact information for. And the people that attended that meeting, they were a little different. They were concerned about, so there's the retail businesses. I think we had an attorney on the call, and we weren't really sure who he was representing, but he said he was representing a number of businesses. So he's asking a lot of questions about fees and fairness and that sort of thing. So we had kind of two different audiences with two different sets of concerns, but that's kind of up to staff to just kind of take all that information in, plus all the research that Kate's been doing around the state. And then as we formulate our recommendations, getting ready for the November meeting, we'll bounce that off our current legal and say, hey, here's what we plan to present as far as fees and regulations. Is this cool? And get his feedback, and then we'll come to council.
Okay.
And then, so what we've been telling business owners at this point, and let me back up a little bit. Business owners were, they've been really confused about what staff has been doing with these meetings. I think they're not accustomed to having city staff reach out to them directly for just information gathering and just a off the record dialogue. And so we got a lot of questions like, where's the agenda and what council members are going to be there? And we took a lot of time to explain, like, no, this is not a council meeting. This is us reaching out to you, gathering information. And then once we gather the information, we'll present it to council. And so after the second meeting, any inquiries that we get, staff has been saying, okay, you have all the information that we have as staff now. Direct your comments and recommendations towards council, because they're the decision makers at this point. So our next presentation is going to be to council. Please come. It'll probably take them a few meetings to get through, given, kind of the complex things that are at hand. So that's been our direction. Any more comments from business owners, direct it to council.
That's a good format to have probably for this and a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
Thank
Okay,
you.
any other questions?
Yeah, just one, just following up, Ryan, on the radar signs. Last meeting, I mentioned that a resident was concerned about speeding near the high school and the possibility of a radar sign, given that we got some new drivers coming in and out of the high school a lot. I don't know if that's feasible or not. Any developments on that?
So I think we drop all of our radar signs, and glad Scott's here for that. For winter protection. Is that the story? Yeah, please do. I'm gonna ask our DPW director to help us out with that.
Yeah, currently, all the signs that we have are assigned a location.
Okay.
So basically, we're just going off of recommendation of the sheriff's department, and if that's where it stood last. So we do have a new sign, but it's going up on Blue Star near Lake Street.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Ensfield did pick up on those comments, and he asked if extra patrol was necessary, and I said, yeah, it is.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any more
The only other
questions?
thing
Sure.
that I would have is, people were asking about the whole AT&T Verizon, and it seems like it's been sitting here for a while. As we all have plenty of cell service this time of year, it would be really nice if we have some answers before we don't have great service again. Is there any update on that?
Yeah, no, there is.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So the latest with AT&T as of today, there's a staff member at AT&T who I spoke with last week, and she's adamant that AT&T is very interested in getting out here. The issue is finding out what existing equipment is on the tower. So this includes both fire, emergency communication equipment, and some other equipment that city staff does not know about. So the dilemma has been coordinating emergency services and their engineer techs to get on. What needs to happen is get on site at the same time, go up to the tower and say, hey, this is our equipment. Don't touch it. We need it. And so we're coordinating that meeting. So that's kind of what's been happening in the last week. But they're really serious about getting that up and running
Okay,
after speaking with them last week.
okay.
It's a priority for them.
And then the Verizon small cell technology placement,
Yeah, that's still a thing. And last we left that was under review with the Historical Society, but I think we moved through that. Cindy, help me out.
Sure. They are still interested in doing that. They have not submitted a complete application yet. They're missing some documents that we need to have to submit to you. The Historic District Commission requested a different location, and they're good with that new location, but it will be in a parking space.
Stick another red cone there.
Parking, cell service.
I know, really.
But that's the Verizon project, and I did communicate with them yesterday, and they're ready for me to calculate their fees, which I have done. So that's still going on. It takes quite a bit of time to get all those approvals and all the FCC and whatever else they need lined up, but it's still going.
Okay.
And just to be clear, when we talk about AT&T and Verizon, we're just talking about AT&T and Verizon customers benefiting from that. They do not lease that.
They are willing, Verizon is willing to have other providers co-locate with them on the poles, if the pole will support it.
Frontier or Verizon? Am I confused?
It's Verizon.
Okay. And then one other comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Is that since this person that I was speaking with at AT&T who seemed so ambitious to get this project done, I just floated out the idea of getting some public Wi-Fi downtown with AT&T. And then she connected me with their intergovernmental person. So
Very good.
that's probably going to be a discussion going forward as
Good.
well.
That'd be huge.
That's great.
Yeah.
And just one follow-up on the AT&T, the visit to inventory the equipment up there. I would strongly suggest you invite one or more members of the radar station work group. There's some deep knowledge on what's up there. That's within the group. I'm assuming Russ will nod in violent agreement that it would be valuable for one or two of the work group members to come on and tag along. I think that could be of value.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Opportunity for public comment from the council, looks like. Yeah, you can talk now.
One of those people that Ryan talks about. Hi, I'm Christine from Wicks Park. Just in regards to the pop-up patio, what Ryan was saying, I think there was a lot of confusion, especially from my end on how it gets presented to you all. And he just keeps saying the staff gets all the information together. And I just felt like 2 meetings, and maybe I'm wrong, which I easily could be, wasn't enough information to be presented to you guys about what me as the permit holder is expecting and wanting, and what my results were from the patio and things of that nature. As we know, the town is exploding. There's just no way around it. There's so many more people that come into the town. I talk to, 600-700 people a day during the summer. Not every person, obviously, but a lot. And it's the last 18 months, 2 years is always new people, new families, people that have never been here. So they are very impressed with the way that the community has opened up the businesses in the town to let people feel safe and comfortable here. And I think that's something that's very important, that it's not about the restaurants and everybody making money and doing all these crazy things and all that. It's about having a place for these people to actually eat and sit and enjoy music and enjoy things like that. So if these patios go away or however it goes, that's a lot of space, at least in my, I can only speak on my side. That's a lot of space that's not being utilized. And I understand with change, with all of these things, there comes better rules, fees, things of that nature. I totally understand that. And I'm open to all those things and would love to, brainstorm or however this works. But I just think they're very important to the community, to keep the community open. we're still in recovery from the pandemic. I mean, we all didn't make it up in one summer, 2 summers, however you want to say it. Even going forward, dining out is a whole different other thing these days. And I just mean like dining out in general, not dining outdoors. I think people's idea is not like this intimate space anymore. People like that outdoor feel. Most big cities are going to the permanent outdoor spaces. Obviously climates that, that have a better thing are, it's easier for them to say, oh, yay, let's do it. We obviously have a lot more things we have to take into consideration kind of thing. I never hear complaints about the parking. I know you all hear it all the time. Most of my clients and everybody is Chicago, California. They're used to walking the 3 blocks. Thank you for integrating the interurban for the circle. I'm out there, people are on it all the time. So that little loop-de-loop super helps. I tell everyone about it, just park up there, it loops around, it's really no waiting time, that kind of thing. So that was a good addition. I just wanted to get across that the streets are fun. There's good things that can go into urban street design. And I just feel like it needs to be just not a like rip the Band-Aid off, no, or rip the Band-Aid out, yes, or this or that. I know some people didn't utilize them like I did. I know that some people aren't coming in the meetings. I know this town's very weird about everyone working together. So I've tried to rally the permit people together. I'm kind of emailing them and telling them what's going on. Hopefully you're hearing from them maybe on the backside when they can't get to the meetings. So that's about all I have to say. I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, I think it's more relevant to present when we get to the presentation from the
Okay.
staff, and I'm sure the business community are going to be invited to
Right.
participate.
So like in the November meeting, it's not going to just like be voted on yes or
I
no.
doubt it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I just didn't know how the process goes, kind of thing. So,
Council hasn't even seen any of the results or the.
okay,
or that. So
okay,
we've got, I'm sure it's going to be several step process.
okay.
Wouldn't you
And,
think?
like I have a lot of people writing letters of support, I would hate to go through next summer having to explain to 20,000 tourists why we don't have the pop-up patios anymore. So I'd really like a way to figure out on how we have to do them. I understand it's probably gonna have to be done differently because we're, rules and safety and money and all those things come into play. So, but I just think it needs to stay in some kind of fashion.
All right.
So that's my 2 cents. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Christine.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it. You
Thanks
bet.
for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on to our items for the agenda for Monday's meeting. Right. Question that's, I think we're doing is just a quick overview. Actually, the zoning ordinance was a discussion item from the last meeting, so take it away, Cindy.
Okay, we talked last time about the R4 zone district and adjusting the setbacks to properties where everybody's set back a different distance from the street. And it's very good urban planning to have smaller front yards and line up houses, especially between 2 intersecting streets. Most of these are residential structures. That's what's allowed in that zone district. And if you want to go to slide number 5, I think. Maybe the next one. Yeah. This is kind of a block by block study of all the properties in that zone district and whether or not they would meet the condition to have a reduced front yard setback. I did all the blocks in the R4 zone district. It would not impact all of the blocks because some of them don't have 40% developed or less than 1/2 of them encroach. So you'd have to have, in order to get the reduced front yard setback, you'd have to have at least 50% of the lots have encroachments already into the front yard. Then you could line up with that encroachment, but not less than 7 feet. That is the proposal, that is the recommendation from the Planning Commission that you adopt that. I don't know if Chris wants to add anything. Were you there at that meeting?
I think it's one of the things cities really focused on too, is kind of trying to get a handle on all the things that are out there and kind of not clear. This was the result of actually a request for somebody on the corner of St. Joe and
Yeah, I don't, it might be the first slide
I think
like
it's
that looks like
249,
that.
isn't it? Or there,
Mm,
St.
it's
Joseph
the next
and
block,
Mason, right
the
there.
next slide. The next slide, please. That one,
Mhm.
350.
350.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the
Historic home.
required front yard setback in that zone district is 20 feet. And if they were to take down that home and build a bed and breakfast, which is a permitted use in that zone district, they would have to be set back 20 feet from the sidewalk, where the other houses are all, one of them is right on the sidewalk. And under the proposed ordinance, they would be 7 feet. It's not in historic district.
That isn't?
No, it's on the
That's
other
too
side of
bad.
the street.
When you go down and stand on Griffith and look down the street, you can see the kind of uneven setbacks that they have, but to put it back that 20
20
feet
feet would be quite,
Yeah, I'd be ashamed to lose that. That was Cora Bliss Taylor's home, the famous artist from
Okay.
Saugatuck, and her art studio was in the back.
so that was what the proposal and the recommendation from the planning
Would be a
commission was.
contributing resource.
So I was asked about would it apply to other, could it apply to other zone districts? And I think that's slide number 5. The only other zone district that I would recommend considering this for would be the R1 community residential. That's kind of the goldenrod color in the middle there. That's laid out in the same kind of grid pattern. I looked at a few blocks. I didn't do a block by block study, but it would impact some blocks different than others. But I think it would be a good thing to do that for platted subdivisions in the R1 community residential.
Yeah.
So this is the language I think is really important, and that's where I've come back to, which is, so at least 40% of the parcels on the same side of the street between two intersecting platted streets. So basically, where is that even the possibility of happening in a city? That at least 40% of the parcels on the same side of the street would be, is that anywhere within town?
That less than 40% would be developed? I don't think so. 40% is kind of an arbitrary number that says, look, if most of the stuff is developed
Right.
and half of them, more than half of them encroach, then you could use that setback. And it doesn't mean you could go 7 feet automatically. If the closest one was 12 feet, then 12 feet would be your setback.
And that would have to come in front of the planning commission anyway, right? you
What would have to come from the, well, the
somebody
planning
wanted-
commission made a recommendation.
Okay,
And you can either accept that recommendation as presented or deny it, or you can modify it. So you could modify it and add R1.
Excuse me. You're not sure though on R1, which ones it would impact right off the bat.
I don't have a particular one right off the bat that it would impact, but I did
I could see
look
it a
through.
step process, but it's easier when you can line them up and see where it's actually going to hit like along.
I can certainly prepare each block. It's going to be a lot more blocks. You'll have to look at a lot more slides, but or I could just list the ones that would impact and not the ones that were impacted, weren't impacted.
Leave that up to the council.
yeah.
Okay? Any questions?
How many meetings was this a
Those-
detailed presentation, an in-depth discussion and everything?
It was the
And
September
Russ could
meeting.
Speak to that too. It was there for 2 different meetings. And she had all the plat pictures and everything for us to go through.
And it was unanimous.
Yep.
Unanimous, okay.
Is this a pretty standard
Yes.
zoning feature? in
It's
most
very
cities?
common in zoning ordinances. In fact, I took the original recommendation out of the City of Holland's ordinance.
So would you see then the next step would be this next area, this R1?
You're trying to clean things up, kind of get
Yep.
everything coordinated.
That
So
would
I
be
think
that.
she's got I would say it would be yes.
Okay. That's what I was. Okay.
So this would go back on the agenda. Is that what you're contemplating for action? Monday night?
Correct.
Yeah. So any more questions? Might be a good time to get out of the way.
My only other question I had for Cindy, we talked about it earlier, was why not just ask for a variance? And your response was?
In order to be granted a variance, one of the things that you need to prove to the zoning board of appeals is that you have a hardship and there's no way with the property that you could move it back 20 feet. And that's generally not the case.
Right.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Moving on, the capitalization policy resolution.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. City staff is currently going through its audit. One of the items that the auditor flagged was the fact that we do not have a capitalization policy in place, which, okay, easy enough to do. And really, the capitalization project policy would just say any equipment that's over $5,000 needs to be capitalized. It's an accounting standard that's used all over the country. So this will be in front of you on Mondays, at Monday's meeting.
Ask a quick question about that. So this is the same auditor we've been using from Saginaw?
I do believe that's the case. I don't,
Never came up before?
apparently not. I think they got some new staff.
Okay.
Nor past auditors.
Why is this?
Nor past auditors never came up with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, Peter was surprised that, yeah,
One wasn't in place too, so.
Okay.
Somebody
They
looked
come
at
and
it from a
present-
different lens, yeah.
They
Ally?
come- they
Got a
come
little
and
typo.
okay.
for Monday. First, whereas this document provides the general framework for, it should say, for determining whether such cost should be capitalized or to determine.
I was thinking too.
I'll say that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good go. Okay. Moving on, engineering oversight for Campbell Road project. Motion on the table, Monday night, approve.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one's pretty straightforward as well. Campbell Road project's underway. The engineering oversight on that project. I will present to you well within industry standards. Happy to take any questions on this item.
I think they are actually having two, right? A 1.5 engine. More than just one dedicated engineer inspector on the premise site.
One prime supervisor, full-time, and then other staff is needed that flexes in.
That's a critical component of this project. We're working with two communities on both sides. Water main, water lines. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive.
My question's for you, Mayor. How are your neighbors feeling about this project?
I think everyone is on board. Looking forward to a new road. And with any new road, they'll probably be here at the end of next summer complaining about the speed. And that is a speed demon sign. A lot of people coming around from the west headed down from
That's true.
inching through Lake Shore, then they hit Campbell Road and like, but it'll work. No, the road's gonna be wider, 4 feet wider, I believe. And we hear a lot about the foot traffic and bicycle traffic on Park Street. I can tell you, it's probably, there's more of it on Campbell Road. And so just a little bit extra elbow room will help. 4 feet, two on each side, I think is the plan. So I get a new, mailbox out of it. My expense, but that would stop it. You know, we have mailboxes. Well, you have mailboxes on the side of everything. But anyways, those are gone. But other than that, thank you. They're at it quick this week. I guess, right, Scott? You've been over there?
Yeah.
Good.
Within no time.
Good.
Cold weather does that.
All right. As well as deer season.
Deer season.
Mayor, question.
Yes.
Question for the manager. Is Splice and Vandenbrink gonna make some kind of a presentation, or is this what we'll have for Monday?
They would be happy to come, but I did not plan to have them here.
Okay.
Up to you
All I
all.
needed to know.
Okay.
Okay. All
Okay, Sheriff's Department agreement.
Yeah, so Kate White flagged the fact that the Sheriff's Department agreement is expired. So that's not good.
They haven't come to us.
So I reached out to him, said, hey, you know, we got an expired agreement here. Need to get this thing renewed. And they took it to the county administration and they came back to me and they said, well, I think they're gonna want to change some language with liability and some other things, insurance liability wise. And I said, well, that's gonna take some time to get through because we'll have to present that to legal and we'll have to present to our insurance company. Can we just renew the existing terms to give us kind of a little stopgap until we can get to that? And so that's what you see in front of you. It's just an extension of the current terms until the end of the year. So that we can work on any changes that they come to us with, which they have not done so far. So this would just be an extension of the current terms that the city has.
All right. Ken, you spent a lot of time on that, working on that contract. It's be interesting to get your feedback when you see the proposed, those changes are coming from the Sheriff's Department.
Correct.
That'll be interesting.
So
Okay. Any other questions regarding that? Just kind of okay. Various appointments that occur after elections, an organizational meeting result, et cetera.
Yeah, so that's item E. The first one is the mayor pro tem, board chairperson's appointment. So one of the items that came up was, and it's come up the last 2 years, is after somebody gets elected, like Russ, when do they actually take their seat? And then the answer to that question, to be consistent with the last 2 years, just for information, we'll get this into the packet for Monday. The council person shall hold their seat for their elected term from the second Monday following the city election. So Russ will take his seat officially the 22nd.
His term will commence on the 22nd.
22nd.
I believe that's in the city charter. I think that's where we.
Right, and you've got, yeah, you got an opinion on that. In 2019, your interim manager, Karen, brought that opinion back to your 2020 city council agenda at this time of year. So as you sit down on Monday, you're gonna go over the mayor and mayor pro tem. So any questions on that, Mr. Mayor?
No, I think we've been through it a few times. We're good to go on that. It's thrown me off in the board chairperson appointments. What are you referencing there?
Chairperson appointments, I don't think we need to worry about that. That might be just some, just something.
Yeah, we do
that was
have
added
an
in.
appointment for, we're talking that on the next item.
Yeah.
And we'll have a upcoming vacancy on planning that being worked on. Some applicants for that, that'll all come due time. Okay, zoning board of appeals alternate, that's kind of self-explanatory.
I'm glad she's getting back in.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Me too.
Yes, Cindy.
Mr. Mayor, I just received communication from one of our other planning commission members who will be moving out of the city, so we will have another opening.
Well, there you have it then.
Okay,
That's Mike Van Meter.
okay,
Oh,
all right.
Okay.
A neighbor, I was gonna lose a neighbor.
didn't like the roads.
Surely. They run a raise your
I
taxes.
have a question. Alternate, what is the role of an alternate?
Cindy,
The zoning board of appeals consists of 5 members. And to get a quorum, especially during times of peak vacation, was very difficult. So we added, in accordance with the Zoning Enabling Act, 2 alternates who could fill in if we didn't have a quorum. So that's really what that's for.
yeah, and it's been practiced that the alternates typically are involved in the review process, attend the meeting. So in case you go to a meeting and someone doesn't show up, they're readily available and up to speed on the.
Yeah, and they can
processes and
participate in the
topics.
discussion if we already have a quorum, but they can't vote. Only 5 people can vote.
And I think Kate is pretty well
So we'll
familiar
approve
with,
that on
we're all
Monday.
familiar with Kate. Yeah.
Yeah, she's great.
Okay, thank you. And landscape improvements. The city's village square and Earl's.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
At the last city council meeting, staff presented to you a scope of work for making improvements to the city parks in the downtown area, specifically the Village Square Park and the Rose Garden. And so staff met, staff went out for competitive proposals. We reached out to 4 landscape companies in total. Those are listed in the summary here. 2 were non-responsive, didn't respond to the information we sent out. So we had 2 show up to our walkthrough. And we only received 1 proposal. And that was through Landscape Design Services. And that's not shocking to staff, given lack of employees. And so just kind of our general thinking is, and talking with the contractors directly, is that they're just trying to maintain their existing client base for maintenance, and they're not trying to pick up new work. And so again, that's not surprising. So we got 1 proposal. And the costs are presented here. We broke that out, and I even went into a little explanation about the maintenance of the Rose Garden, given the fact that the company that did submit the proposal has been the same company that's been maintaining the Rose Garden. So there were some questions that were asked of Landscape Design Services of how did this garden get into the condition that it's in, given the fact that you've had this maintenance contract for 20 some odd years, and city's been paying from $7,000 to $10,000 a year. And so they provided the response, and basically their response is that, this plant material is old, and that the maintenance contract that they had did not call for them to remove mulch year over year. So they would come in and top dress mulch, but they wouldn't remove mulch. Their contract didn't call for them to trim ground cover. And so that was kind of their position. And then we challenged them a little bit on just like, well, what about just like general pruning of the shrubs, what have you? And they said, okay, well, that we feel bad about, and we'll come in, we'll send a crew in and we'll do some trimming. And that's about it. And so these, again, we got 1 proposal broken down into 2 different areas. I will also mention the fact that the city does have a fund north of $100,000 for the Rose Garden. So dollars spent on improvements to the Rose Garden would come out of that fund. Improvements to the Village Square area would come out of the general fund. Happy to take any questions that you have on this.
Well, the work that's being done currently in the Rose Garden is just their routine fall shutdown.
Yeah, pretty much, and that was what was a little unclear. Our previous city manager dealt with this particular contract on this property for a long time around. So the specifics of that agreement are kind of out of my eyes, but yeah, it seemed like a lot of the basic maintenance now would have to be clarified in our new agreement with them, really spelled out clearly that, you know, what, in my opinion, would be routine basic maintenance. Didn't seem to fit their description of it, so we'll work on that and get it done.
Good.
Yeah, what we've asked of them going forward, should they get a service agreement going forward, I guess that's not a given. Is that every time they come out, we get a report. How many people were out there, what they do, if they use fertilizer, we want to know what fertilizer they use. If they did an irrigation check, we want to know how many little sprinkler heads they replaced, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty standard stuff for a landscape maintenance contract with the city. Just have those checks and balances.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I have a question. Down at the bottom, it says other considerations not included, reset all the brick pavers, but metal fencing work done by others. What is that?
So the Rose Garden has a beautiful metal fence that surrounds it. Interesting story, not to get sidetracked, but I'm going to. So apparently 7 years ago, the city looked at this fence and decided to do nothing with it. I've seen other proposals. So Scott and I were looking at the fence. Scott was like, man, we should maybe just think about taking this whole thing down and replace it with aluminum fencing. And I was like, whoa, 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 Scott, this fence is beautiful. Scott's like, well, okay, fine. It is really nice. Let's go check out the new garden in Douglas, across from the library, and see what's going on over there. And so we did. We went over there, and lo and behold, there's some guy working on a gate to the fence. And Scott, what's that? An aluminum fence. And so Scott and I were like, wow, this fence is amazing, the one in Douglas. And we were like, hey, do you work on fences, by the way? Because we need some help in the city of Saugatuck at the Rose Garden. And he was like, you know who built that fence, don't you? He did one of these arm crossing things. And he was like, that was me. So we met the guy the same day Scott wanted to destroy the city. Anyways, long story short, that's a separate proposal, kind of separate work.
I was there 7 years ago when that came up. And if you go out and touch that fence, it's like heavy wrought iron. And to try to replace it with an aluminum fence was, that's why we did nothing.
Got it.
Because it was going to have to be blown, what is it called?
Well, we're gonna
Sandblasted.
and powder coat.
Powder coat it. And that's what we wanted to do. Unfortunately, time ran out. We didn't get it done, but that fence is.
Yeah, and I think people felt that the aesthetics of it
Yes.
were far superior to what we perceived to be an aluminum fence.
Yeah. So, I mean, so the guy said he'd help us out as far as getting the fence. He said he doesn't really do the sandblasting work, but he'd help us through the process. So to answer your question directly, it's separate work from what the landscape contractor would do. So separate aside.
If I might, Scott, this is $41,300 seems like a lot for such a small area, but I know it's significant work, especially with the drip system that they're wanting to put in. Is that where the bulk of the cost is?
I think the bulk of it was resetting the pavers and just general excavation and all that eats up cost.
Yeah.
The plant material, irrigation, you're basically starting from scratch.
Okay.
Using that separate island, and then the overgrown trees along the sandbar. There's like a white fungus all over them. They're not useful, but faster useful.
And do you think this is a good amount and it'll start fresh? And then it's a maintenance thing after that,
Yeah.
it'll start fresh and look a lot better. Obviously, we have a fund for it, so.
Yeah, I was curious on how much is it gonna take to get this place with the shape? And so we had a really productive meeting with them, I guess, who offered some really good insight to it. And it seems like I think he threw out a number at the time around like 35 would really fit a long way. So it seems pretty consistent with what John was saying, who I consider to be an expert in the field, for sure.
So this John gentleman that Scott's referring to is, he grows rhododendrons. He's got patents on, he's like a plant guru. Azaleas. Also Ruth Johnson. Ruth Johnson was at the garden. So we got
Good.
multiple kind of local
Nice.
insight on the garden itself. And then one of the conditions of the original donation, which was substantial in its day, was that it may be maintained as a rose garden. And so you have some pine trees there that are shading the park, so that's not good for roses, so we have to take those out. So it's really a really deep scrubbing of the whole property, going in, removing a ton of mulch, redoing the irrigation, pretty much starting from scratch, but keeping some of the specimen plants that are there.
Could I ask then, this isn't an ongoing 41,000, this is for the redoing it, and then there'll be a different amount when it's all done and just maintaining it.
Correct.
So the timing on this then would be?
So we're looking at breaking this down into a two-phase project. They would like to, last time we spoke with them, do the scrubbing work or just removing, clearing out the site, late fall, winter now, and then get back to doing the planting in the spring.
Okay.
Now, the way I read this, though, the reset brick pavers is not included in the 41,000.
So,
Am I not reading this?
I believe it is.
Yeah, it says it's not necessary at this time.
Oh, yeah, there's a.
But it says reset
yeah,
sections.
So sections of the
that
brick
present trip
pavers.
hazards.
Yeah, 5 bullets up, reset
Yeah.
sections of brick path areas. that
So it's
present
not
brick
all of
hazard.
it. It sounds like it's the areas that where it's a trip hazard.
Concentrate on certain areas.
Yep, so we looked at just the trip hazards rather than resetting everything because we didn't think it was necessary, or at least I didn't. And so that's the cost that's included.
Yeah, one of the suggestions that the infamous Mr. Negus made to me. But anyways, was maybe you don't want brick pavers in there anyways, and maybe you ought to put just some type of stamped concrete because it's probably got less long-term maintenance problems. That's what we say.
To me, that's too, so what I love about the brick pavers. And
Not just
even-
concrete on the side, but stamped concrete.
Yeah, I know. One of what I think is really neat about the brick pavers now is the moss that's growing in between them. But that's just because it's really shaded. And again, if it's a rose garden, that moss will hopefully disappear. But I think the stamped concrete's way too commercial for a park of that nature. That's just kind of my opinion.
Well, they have lasted 20, what was it, 98? Yeah, 97, 98. I was mayor when that all that, so. 20, less in excess of 20 years, so I guess that's not a bad lifespan. Not a good story related to the park.
So basically,
Anyways.
yeah, basically the biggest chunk will come out of the Rose Garden Fund.
Yeah,
The remainder.
that has to come out of the Rose Garden Fund, the other Village Park, which I think is a very fair cost, actually, would come out of the general fund.
Got it.
And I will say that we did get original proposal for upgrades to the Rose Garden, and the cost that we got the second go around is less than the original proposal that we received from the same company.
All right. Okay,
If that makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, other questions on either, hold up. We're gonna go ahead right away with the Village Square Park once it's approved. And with parts of the, all right, I got it.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions regarding the proposal?
No.
All right. Good said. Moving on, another opportunity for comments from the public. I'm sure you could.
Anything else you want to discuss?
I'm glad you came, though. We're really glad that.
Bring your friends.
Yeah.
Cindy, do you know what date Mike is going to?
The day after the December meeting.
Okay, so it's not, okay, so we got some time. All right, thank you.
Along those lines,
Yeah.
how many applications do we have?
I think we have just one.
Okay, all right. So we need to rally.
Filed in the last time.
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Right. Moving on to correspondence. Trish has indicated that she's stepping away, even though she'd only have one meeting left. But yeah, we'll create actually a one-person vacancy for the 11/18 meeting. Russ will continue to sit at that meeting as an appointed member. that'll be addressed at the following meeting on the 22nd, when he then becomes, his term commences. And intent is suggesting that he just take the council appointed position, then creating
Another vacancy.
a vacancy for his term, which is a 2-year term, I think, that started in July.
And how much time on Mike's term?
I would have to check that, but I can't.
Yeah, that's somewhat, yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, a little kind of moving, shuffling around there. But I think we got it straight after some. A lot of discussion.
Further
between
review.
Yeah.
Some of us. So. Anyways, that being said, what else we got going here? Flip it over. Council comments. Before we get to our meeting Monday night.
So really quickly to follow up on Christine's comments, I spent a little the last week in both Boston and New York. And there are pop-ups paint everywhere. It's and most of them are permanent now. So I'd be curious, I'm sure maybe Kate has this in her research on how some of our Michigan cities are basically adapting to communities wanting them more permanent. Looking forward to that.
It is part of her research, yes.
Great.
Perfect. Any other questions from council? If not, stand adjourned.
All right.
Go ahead, sure, shut down.
Find out.
Concrete.
I'm just not a fan.
He's
sir.
just like, no.
Holy cow.
I-